On Central News tonight, Tatua Dairy, what lies ahead? Breathless Kiwis are risking their lives, and the household cat is killing our little blue penguins. Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Wednesday, the 17th of December. I'm Hilary Entwistle. It's been a year of commemorations and celebrations for Tatua Cooperative Dairy Company at Tatuanui, celebrating 100 years of operation. Tatua has had numerous events to acknowledge the milestone, culminating in a gala dinner in November. Anne-Marie spoke with CEO Paul McGilvary to find out what lies ahead for Tatua and what were the highlights of the year.
One thing, Anne-Marie, one thing is very, very important to us, and it stood out for me this year. We're trying to build one Tatua team. One team with our customers, one team with our staff, one team with our shareholders. And this year, through the celebrations of the centenary events, has really push that team together, and one team is very, very powerful out in the market and in New Zealand.
At the gala dinner in November, local iwi were both acknowledged but also played a huge part in the evening. Tell me about that.
Well, they're the original people from this land, and Tatua has a huge connection with the land around here. So it was very appropriate that those people, Ngāti Hawa, were part of our celebrations, and we were very, very proud to have them there.
You also acknowledged your Tatua staff for their dedication, loyalty and integrity. Tell me about the importance of Tatua staff.
Well, I think people are everything. You know, any company can have the same equipment, the same cars, the same travel and so on, but it's the people that make the difference. And Tatua staff, day in, day out, are adding value to the farmer's milk, and frankly, without them, we just simply couldn't do it. So they're our most precious resource.
And you've predicted that there'll be an increase of staff by 60% over the next 10 years.
Yep, the type of business we do is both people hungry and capital hungry. As we grow, and we're predicting to grow from, say, about 250 million New Zealand dollar revenue to $400 million revenue, we'll need more staff to support the business. And we can easily see staff numbers growing from just over 300, which they are now, to 500 inside 10 years.
Tatua is a hive of activity at the moment with a new dryer being built. Is it still on track for completion next year?
It's the biggest project we've ever done. So from that reason alone, it gets a lot of attention. It's very exciting. The dryer, we hope, will take us to be the #1 hydrolysis producer in the world. It's absolutely on track. In fact, it's even slightly under budget. And not ready in June, we'll have it ready in April.
Tell me more about hydrolysis.
Hydrolysis, effectively, when you hydrolyse protein, you do exactly what your stomach does to the food when it takes it in. So you use enzymes, you use heat, time and pressure, and what you do is basically pre-digest the protein. So a hydrolysis is a pre-digested protein, and by pre-digesting it, we make it much easier to go through the stomach wall of our consumers, either infants or older people or sports people who need quick energy.
So what kind of product would we find this in?
Oh, infant formula is a big one. Hydrolysis are in infant formula, but they're also in sports foods, that sort of product.
Now, the dryer is being built to the latest technology. The hygiene is of paramount importance, but it's also halal compliant.
The Muslim world is, in terms of consumers, is growing very, very fast. We've made the dryer so that it can be completely halal compliant. In other words, it's free from pork, use of pork-based material or alcohol. So we've designed it so it fully meets halal requirements.
What opportunities is the new dryer going to provide for Tatua?
I think the biggest one is it allows us to grow or to become a world leader in an area where we're already strong. So, you know, I talked about hydrolysis, but we can do other things, specialised powders on that dryer, and it just gives us much greater capacity. The dryer, when it's fully running, will give us about another 6,000 tonnes of capacity on specialised powders. To give you an idea, our current capacity on those products is about 2,500 tonnes.
Now, out of the raw milk that's collected from farms and brought to Tatua, 180 different products are made. Is that right? We probably know about Dairy Whip.
We probably are the most sophisticated dairy site in the world, simply because we use every stream that's in the milk and we separate out a lot of minor components from milk. So we make about 180 different products on this site, not all at once, of course, at different times. And they range all the way from fairly basic milk fat, called anhydrous milk fat, all the way through to your most sophisticated proteins like hydrolysis and like lactoferrin.
And what sits in between the consumer products, like your cheese sauces and things like that?
Correct. So on the cream side, it'll be foods type products and food service products. So for consumer type products like Dairy Whip, like our pre-packed mascarpone, creme fraiche, cheese sauce, those types of products in the cream space. And in terms of protein, we make caseinates, we make whey protein concentrates. These are basic protein components for a lot of different types of food applications.
Even protein powders for the sports people?
Yes, we don't tend to blend them too much, but caseinate's a fairly standard product within infant formula and within sports type products.
Tatua already has a global presence, but next year you're going to be opening new offices in the States and China.
Correct. In fact, we've actually opened them, or in the process of registering them. We've always had an office in Japan, in Tokyo, with our eight local staff. But in 2015 we will have offices in both Shanghai and in Philadelphia in the US, and we have the staff already recruited for those offices. It's very, very important that for the types of products that we make, that we provide technical support to the customer. A lot of our products require a lot of technical support in terms of the application of them, but also we identify opportunities in our biggest markets much more readily with our own people on the ground. And the other thing that's becoming increasingly important is to make sure we control our own supply chain all the way through to the customers. So those markets between them, the three markets of China, USA and Japan, between them make up more than 50% of our sales, and we wish to do all of those things in those markets.
It's a big year for 2015. Moving forward, what does it hold for Tatua?
We've got a few priorities in 2015. I mean, we're going into our 101st year with a lot of confidence. The first thing off the rank is obviously our new dryer. We want to get our new dryer built and commissioned correctly and product flowing from it nicely. We've got a lot of initiatives in the area of sustainability. We're looking very, very hard at how we treat our water and how we can put water back into the ground in a better condition than when we pulled it out. So we'll be working very hard on that. We have a new enterprise resource system, a new computer system going in this year, and we're also quite focused on those subsidiaries and making sure those offshore subsidiaries get away to a good start.
So the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, you're going to continue to see growth. In the next 5 years, I think we'll make a lot of progress on sustainability. But I think, largely we're continuing what we're doing. The four strategic themes we have of growing the premium above the New Zealand milk price, working on sustainability really hard, trying to develop the one team through working on purpose and building on our vision and values, and finally just recruiting and attracting and retaining the very best people we can.
For more details, go to tatua.com. Coming up next on Central News, the early warning signs of the silent disease. Welcome back to Central News on TV Central. If you feel out of breath in the morning, you're not alone. 1 in 10 New Zealanders have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but yet so many go undiagnosed.
At the early stages of COPD, your symptoms are pretty mild. You've just got a bit of breathlessness, a little bit of a cough, and a lot of the patients, I think, will put that down to being unfit, maybe a bit of smoker's cough, and so they don't see the need to present to the doctor at that stage. And we often will see patients with more advanced symptoms and more advanced disease, where we've often missed the boat as far as good intervention and even the chance of reversing some of the changes. Spirometry testing, this is lung function testing, is available in most general practice clinics now, and that's the key to diagnosis. So I think one of the reasons that it can go undiagnosed is patients don't access that that test well enough.
What is that test?
The test involves breathing into a tube that's connected to, in most cases, to a computer, and it measures the lung function, and in particular it measures how much air you can move out of your lungs in 1 second, and also how well you can empty all of the air in your lungs over a period of several seconds. And of course, somebody with COPD, their lungs collapse down too quickly, and so they struggle to move the air out fast and efficiently.
So are there any other tests that you can do for this?
There's a very rare genetic condition that should be tested for in some cases. It's a vanishingly rare condition, so it wouldn't be front of mind for every patient coming through. But if there's a strong family history of lung conditions like COPD, that would warrant testing. But mostly, apart from the spirometry, sometimes a chest X-ray can be useful, more to rule out other lung conditions that can masquerade as COPD. But essentially, it's down to looking at the symptoms that the patient's reporting and doing the spirometry test. Particularly in the context of a smoking history, that clinches your diagnosis with those three things.
How much more likely are smokers to have this disease?
The data suggests that 15% of all smokers will develop COPD, and of all COPD sufferers, 85% of them have their condition attributable to smoking. So it's high risk.
So what are some of the treatments then if we're caught it early?
The treatments really fall into 4 categories. The first of those categories is to slow down the rate of progression, because I've said it's a progressive condition. You want to slow down that rate, and the absolute key is smoking cessation. The more you smoke, the faster your lungs will decline, the lung function will decline. So smoking cessation is the key. The second level of treatment is about controlling symptoms, about limiting the impact of symptoms of breathlessness and cough. And that can be done through a variety of different inhalers, which are really the mainstay of treatment for COPD. And there are a number of different inhalers that can open up the airways in the lungs and reduce the amount of mucus production and reduce the inflammation in the lungs. The third level of treatment involves maximising the health status of the patient, because we know that if you're well nourished and you're fit and you're in a good mental place, you're going to do well. And particularly important, and the evidence is really strong for this, pulmonary rehabilitation is important, and there are different organisations around the country that will provide exercise programs and physio support programs to keep the lungs as healthy and strong as possible, and that's key in managing the condition. And then the fourth aspect is controlling or preventing and treating flare-ups, because people with COPD will get chest infections more often, and the chest infections they get are usually more severe. So we want to be using inhalers and antibiotics sometimes courses of prednisone to control those flare-ups, because every flare-up that somebody with COPD has leads to a progressive or accelerated loss of lung function. And then finally, some patients who are very advanced in their condition need oxygen at home just to cope with the daily tasks of showering and dressing.
Besides not smoking, is there any way that we can help ourselves have healthy lungs?
I think the absolute key is smoking cessation, getting that message out there that smoking is damaging people's lungs. It's damaging many other aspects of health as well, but we know it's particularly powerful at destroying lung tissue, and assisting people to recognise the importance of smoking cessation and then to get on and stop is the key piece of information. The other important piece of information, I think, is to encourage patients to talk to their doctors and say, I'm concerned that I might have this condition, I have some symptoms, or I'm a smoker. Can I have that spirometry test just to document whether or not I'm at risk?
Is there a way then, that we can, if we're not smokers, is there a way that we can have healthy lungs, I guess? Are there any exercises or things to eat or anything like that?
Yes, I think that a lot of people struggle with poor breathing technique. The term for that at the moment is breathing pattern disorder, where we breathe inefficiently, and there are lots of reasons why people fall into poor breathing patterns, but it can lead to retention of air in the lungs unnecessarily, and inefficient breathing technique that can then lead to other symptoms of breathlessness and chest pains and fatigue. So being conscious of good posture and good breathing technique is important. Secondhand smoke has evidence now for its damaging effect. So even if you're not a smoker, avoiding environments where you're exposed to smoke and environmental fumes is important to maintain good lung health too.
Do you know anything as to why there's such a high rate in New Zealand?
Our rates in New Zealand overall compare with the international rates of about 15%. But in New Zealand, the Māori population has a particularly high impact from COPD. They are 5 times, Māori people are 5 times more likely to die from COPD than non-Māori. And Māori tend to get their symptoms of COPD about 20 years earlier than non-Māori. So the impact for Māori is substantial. And I think that's why we do experience such a big deal with COPD in New Zealand, because of that representation from Māori people.
Do we know why Māori are more susceptible?
I think there are lots and lots of reasons. Simplistically, I'd suggest their smoking rates are higher and their access to healthcare is poorer. And for those 2 reasons, they go undiagnosed for longer.
So what has been your role with COPD?
I'm a GP and I see a lot of COPD patients every day. I'm also the asthma, or the advisor, the medical advisor to the Asthma and Respiratory Management group here in Tauranga. And I have a role as an advisor to Pharmac on their respiratory committee when it comes to respiratory pharmaceuticals.
If you are worried, you can ask your GP for a spirometry test. Just ahead, the weather for Thursday, and our little blue penguins are in danger. Welcome back to Central News. It may seem strange, but people's beloved kitties are attacking and killing little blue penguins on Leisure Island in Mount Maunganui. And they're causing a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to pest control.
Yeah, well, because we're so close to all the houses, and cats can travel quite large distances. So at night time we do have a few domestic cats that come to the island and wreak a bit of havoc amongst our ground nesting birds here. So part of the Trust's goal is to hopefully raise a bit of education, raise a bit of awareness and educate the locals that of just actually what their cat's getting up to at night. Most people probably have no idea how far their cat travels at night, and as there's no houses directly across the road here, they might think that it's not their cat doing it, but they can travel long distances. So we've lost about 30 to 40 diving petrels alone in the last few weeks just from cats visiting the island late at night. And the only thing we can really, they are domestic pets, so somebody loves them. I've got my own cat, I love my cat. So really it's just a case of trying to encourage people to maybe keep it locked up inside at night. Most of your cat fights happen at night. Your cat's most likely to get run over on the road at night. The other issue with Motariki or Leisure Island, as the locals know it, is that there is with all the penguins and the ground nesting birds here, there's actually a lot of diseases here as well. Seals carry lots of diseases that can be caught by humans, we all know that, but penguins and ground nesting birds also carry a lot of ticks and lice, and it's quite a problem on this island. So to bring your dog or your cat here, you're also risking them not only getting something like a problem with ticks and that, but also if they put their head into a hole and there's a penguin or petrel in there, they will defend themselves, they will peck at their face, and in return that beautiful pet will fight back. So it's sort of protecting both of them as well. Your dog's at risk of losing an eye. Yeah, so it's not just cats that are an issue here, it's also with the dogs. Penguins are very smelly. A lot of our native birds carry things like strong smells. They also don't have the flight reaction, because penguins don't fly, for example, but the petrels, they can't take off like a normal bird, so they're at huge risk, especially from dogs and cats, because they don't have the ability to just suddenly fly away. That makes them very vulnerable, and that's why there is very few places left on the mainland that you're actually able to see these birds. So with the dog owners, it is a dog-free area, and it has been for many years. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't sort of realise that. So we'd also like to raise awareness about that pretty much the whole of Tauranga you can take your dog for a walk, and there's only about 3 or 4 places you're not allowed to, and this is one of them, and this place is special. It's dog-free for a reason. It's not just because, you know, we're being mean. It's dog-free zone purely to protect our native birds and also to protect your dog as well.
Are there any birds that have actually deserted the mount because of the predators there?
Well, without science studies, it's hard to tell whether they've actually been all not here because they were all killed by the pests, or whether they have actually decided to desert. So most of these birds are very monogamous when it comes to their burrows. They'll come to the same burrow every year, and they have a very good home instinct. So you can't just take these birds and go stick them on an island over there, because they'll just fly back. So it's assumed that the other species that bred here, these local populations died out, but there is a few that may have deserted, like the dotterels, may have actually deserted and moved to a less pest-ridden area in order to do that. So we've definitely lost a lot, yeah.
And how can the general public help our wildlife in the mount?
Just knowing they're there, just being aware that keeping your dogs away from the dog-free zones, if you're local, to keep your cat locked in at night, and also just things like rubbish, stuff like that. Everything that you put out, leave on the beach, ends up under the rocks and things like that. We have a huge issue with bottles being shoved under rocks, especially around Motariki Island and around Moau, and what that actually does is it's blocking burrows, so it's actually, you end up with a penguin inside or chicks inside and a penguin outside that can't get to their chicks and feed them. So that's a huge issue. Just being aware, take your rubbish with you, and you know, if you see someone with a dog, just you know, maybe mention, hey, did you know it's a dog-free zone? You know, they may not know, and most people aren't aware of it. So when you approach them and tell them, do you know it's a dog-free zone, they're quite happy when you explain to them why to take their dogs and not come back again. So that's pretty much, the locals can get involved, and also by joining our trust, Moau Area Wildlife Trust, where, you know, the more funds we have, the more we can help with pest control and help raise public awareness and things like that as well.
If you'd like to help out or even join the pest control team, you can visit mauawildlife.org. Now it's time for our weather for Thursday. Looking to the seas now for Thursday. That is Central News for today. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can via our Facebook page, centralnews.tv, or email us, news@tvcentral.co.nz. Join me again for more stories from the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. Until then, I'm Hilary Entwistle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.